But for the UNC staff, there was a lot of focus, I would say, on Sadiq White, who is a 2025, I'll call him forward, combo forward from Myers Park High School in Charlotte. He's kind of garnering more attention from UNC over the last 5 or 6 months. And Hubert Davis got his first glimpse of him watching him in person eval on excuse me on Saturday. Jeff Lebo is the lead assistant, so that's something that we're looking at closely because it kind of fits in with the old school recruiting philosophy of Roy Williams, where an assistant makes contact, an assistant talks to the player and the high school coach for a while, then an assistant watches, then another assistant watches. Sean May watched him on Friday. Then another assistant watches. Brad Frederick watched him on Saturday, or excuse me, on Saturday morning. And then Lebo and Davis watched him on Saturday as well. So all four bench coaches have watched him. I'm sure the rest of the staff has seen his film. And he had a big weekend too. So kind of
Hmm.
wondering what the next steps are because it's checked all the boxes of wanting to see him playing well, and the entire staff watching him too.
Sean, what have you seen Sadiq play, or do you have any thoughts on his game at this point, man?
Well, only on video, but I think right now he's a top 25 prospect, and in terms of the players that have been offered, really all the top 10 guys, from Darren Peterson and others, especially at that shooting guard and small forward spot. So, you know, I think they did a fantastic job identifying the positions they wanted for 2024 early. Even though, for instance, the first guy they offered, Jaron Stevenson, there was a big lag between when he was offered and then when the second and third scholarship offers came. But once those started arriving, they identified and they were able to close guys pretty quickly going through last summer, and I think that has helped set them up for 2025. So really, as you're going through the July recruiting period, it's almost babysitting the 2024 guys. Maybe there's one other need out there, or one other, maybe 1 to 2 guys are still looking at, knowing how, up and down everything can go from a decision making process. But for the most part, they get a head start on 2025. I saw Sherrell and Ben's note that Sean May was out on the West Coast watching Koa Pete today in Arizona. So it just gives them a little bit of opportunity to watch some of these top 10 guys that they have offers out to. But at the same time, monitoring. Right now, the rankings are going to change drastically in terms of where people are going. So who's going up, who's, especially in the area, who's making a big jump, et cetera. And they'll be able to react pretty quickly.
Yeah, go ahead,
I,
Ro.
I just wanted to jump into. I think if you notice, me and Sean and I think others on the staff have had some cynicism towards some of these 2025 offers and kind of wondering, okay, we're just going on the list and offering everyone who's good or top 10 or top 12 or whatever. What I will say is that maybe we as a staff, IC staff, also need to kind of recalibrate because when they offered Ian Jackson last summer and Elliot Cadeau last summer, I was like, especially with Cadeau, it just didn't seem like something that would happen for Carolina. And here we are a year later, and they got both of those guys, and there
Yeah.
wasn't a ton of known background information about UNC being in the recruitments or UNC being viable for them. They weren't mentioned really at all. So I'm trying to do a better job myself of not being a cynic when it comes to some of these players they're offering. Now the Boozer twins, yeah, I will remain a cynic on that one. But the rest of the guys, we just kind of have to wait and see who visits, who they keep in contact with, who they watch the most during, excuse me, during the live periods in July, and just kind of track this into the fall because there's a chance. Hubert Davis has shown that they can get national recruits who are top 10 to commit to him in UNC, despite kind of the up and down nature of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. Well, one of the other names that I'm looking here on the scoop was Jackson Keith. I guess where does he fit into the rankings? Do you think, Sherrell?
So still, I think they're still figuring it out with him. He doesn't have an offer yet, but he's been on campus, seemed to enjoy it, and he's definitely, I would say, an ascending player. He plays for Team Loaded on the Adidas circuit, so hopefully we'll be able to see him a little bit next week. But yeah, he's that kind of two guard. Maybe can play some three, but I would consider him like a true two guard. And right now they do have an offer out to Isaiah Harwell, an Idaho native. You don't hear that often.
Yeah.
Um, who they offered last September. So he was the first offer in 2025. So it seems like another situation where they're going to give Harwell a little time. And if he's not ready to make a decision, then they'll keep recruiting him, but start to offer other players. And I think, in addition to Peterson and Harwell, I think that Jackson Keith is right there.
Sean, what about you? Have you seen much of basically the same question I asked you about Sadiq White? Anything on Jackson Keith's game? Is he someone that's popped up on your radar?
I mean, yeah, you kind of seen his name a lot. I think he was on from the Max Prep sophomore All-American team. He was on that general listing. So, he had a good season. You saw him visiting UNC, talented. Yeah, I agree with Sherrell in terms of shooting guard, two guard, and ability to score the basketball. So I think for him right now, he's ranked in the close to the 40s, but will be interesting to track his progress on that Adidas circuit, which doesn't get as much publicity, obviously, as the Nike ones, but all it takes is a little bit of time in July, and you can go ascending up the rankings. And even, flashing back to last July, in terms of, the question was, will Drake Powell get an offer? Who are they looking at for the wing spot? Drake Powell, got to see him in Kansas City, was good, but fairly passive. But you could see a lot of the intangibles. And then, look where he is now, top 10 prospect, completely different outlook on where he's at. So I think this just goes to the coaching staff and who they're identifying from a talent perspective, as well as really a projection standpoint, because they've been going after and they've been winning battles with the top guys. But at the same time, you need to, what we were talking about earlier from an NBA one and done perspective, would you rather have had Vernon Carey or Armando Bacot? I think everybody would agree Armando, just given the differences. But at the same time, when you are going after those top 10, top 20 guys, you might have them committed, but until they're on campus, you never really know if that's where they're gonna land. So once again, I think talent identification, whether it's a prospect from North Carolina or the surrounding states or somebody in that New York Northeast area, talent identification and locking in, that'll be everything that determines how UNC is going to do under Hubert Davis, these next few years.
One last jump in, John, just to close the note on Sadiq White. So obviously EYBL starts not this coming week, but the week of July 4th. I think the first day is actually July 4th that the tournament starts. Same thing with Adidas. But Jaron Stevenson obviously committed to Alabama, is reclassing, so I don't think he's going to be playing at the Peach Jam. He plays for Team United 17s on the Nike EYBL circuit. Sadiq White plays on Team United 16s. There seems to be a big hole at the combo forward spot. So maybe we could see White move up to 17s at Peach Jam, which would be a real big test for him to play against, stronger, faster, more athletic, older guys.
Sean, any thoughts on that, on him potentially playing up?
I mean, I think it offers a great opportunity to play up. You're going against the top athletes. A lot of guys will stay on the U16 circuit, which is completely fine. But you're always challenged at. I mean, the U17, you can't get any better than that, especially at Peach Jam. So it'll be interesting to track how everything goes.